Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of The Boss of Centocelle by PJ Mann, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Prologue. In the dark corner of a garage on the outskirts of Rome, Andrea Gianni had found his little paradise. The smell of oil hovered in the air, mixed with the odor of gasoline. In the background, the radio murmured old 1970s ballads. The luminous glow of the workbench lamps and the fluorescent lights in the attic projected Andrea's silhouette on the wall, a figure dancing in harmony with the other shadows. Oddly enough, the day had seemed long and unbearable to him. Every minute had seemed like an eternity. He had no plans for the evening, but still looked forward to going home. He waved goodbye to his boss and colleagues and, whistling, walked out the back door toward his Yaris. With each step, his mood improved. When he closed the door and put his hands on the steering wheel, he sighed with relief, and a smile appeared on his face. Time to tune to Ram Power, his favorite radio station, and he was engulfed in the whirlpool of cars. At that hour, traffic spared no street in the capital. The phone rang, and his cousin's name appeared on the display. Hi, Anto. Oh, where are you? Andrea lowered the volume. I just left the garage. How about you? I'm done now, too. Meet you somewhere? Yes, but first I must go home and change clothes. Shall we go to Rose's for a beer? I have to meet a guy for a business deal, but I'll explain everything in person. All right, but the line didn't have a good signal. Can you hear me? Yes, said. I was telling you, with this traffic, it'll at least take me 40 minutes. Don't worry, I'm stuck too. Then let's meet at Rose's, and the first one to arrive will grab a table and the beers. Okay, see you later, Antonio replied. It wasn't clear what kind of deal his cousin planned to make. Antonio, or Anto, or even Tony, as everyone called him, always managed to materialize by getting weed to deal at the disco on Saturday nights. It was a way to round up his income and afford a better summer vacation and nicer gifts for the girls and family members. The police had called them once, but they got off with a warning given the minimal amount in their possession. Andrea arrived home. He took a shower and put on his usual pair of jeans, and then chose his favorite sweater, the one his grandmother had given him before she died. He looked at himself in the mirror and with a satisfied smile left the house. He drove the car back to join Tony. When he arrived in front of the bar, before getting out of the car, he checked the rear view mirror to ensure that his hair, which was shorter on the sides, was still perfect. He took a comb from the glove department and gave it one last touch up. He got out of the car and headed for the entrance. On the way up, he waved to two girls who passed by him and watched them walk away. The bar was almost empty, but it would soon fill up. Many people, especially those who worked in the surrounding businesses, stopped for a drink before resuming their journey home. Hello, Rosa, Andrea greeted the owner with a wave of his hand. Oh, Andre, are you alone? No, I mean, yes, I'm waiting for Tony. In the meantime, will you make us two beers? Sure, have a seat, I'll be right there. Andrea sat at a small table near the window so he could keep an eye on the parking lot. To pass the time, he began scrolling through videos posted on social media until Antonio's voice made him look up. Have you been waiting long? He ruffled his hair, knowing how maniacally he cared for it. Andrea hurried to a comb. Hey, keep your hands to yourself. No, I just got here. So what? Andrea looked at Tony. Who are we meeting? Antonio looked around to make sure there were no prying ears. Cousin, we're going on a mega vacation this summer. I got a super deal, he whispered. What kind of business? Tony smiled. Forget the marijuana. I have a contact with a guy who wanted to sell me stuff. Like what? Coke and meth. Are you out of your mind? Andrea shouted. Merda, lower your voice, Antonio said, hurrying to cover his cousin's mouth with one hand. If we get caught, we'll go straight to the cage. My mother will kill me, and my father will resurrect me to kill me with his bare hands, whispered Andrea through his cousin's fingers. Why do you always have to be so negative? We've dealt pot hundreds of times, and the police only called us once. Andrea shook his head. If they were caught even once stealing hard drugs, the consequences would be far more severe than a simple report. How much does this guy pay? A lot, at least €1,000. Think about it. We can make a lot of money if we do this every Saturday. Andrea bit his lower lip and looked up at his cousin. When do we meet him? I knew I could convince you. At 8 o'clock. We have time to eat something first. Antonio raised his glass of beer. Cheers. Cheers, Tony echoed him. 5 minutes to 8 p.m., the two cousins were in Antonio's car, waiting for the man who would supply them with coke to deal at the disco the following Saturday. The yard in front of the abandoned house where Tony had an appointment looked like something out of the movie Cabin Fever. The breeze whispered through the trees' canopies, and the car's headlights cleaved through the rising haze. The movement of trees and bushes gave life to moving shadows in which ghosts took shape, moving stealthily from one tree trunk to another. From afar, the barking of dogs interrupted the melody of the wind. Neither spoke, and even outside the vehicle, a dead silence reigned. Antonio had left the headlights on to illuminate at least part of the forecourt in front of them, but all around was darkness. In Andrea's mind, millions of thoughts chased each other, and none boded well. How can Tony trust the person who gave him an appointment in such a place? This is the ideal place for a murder. With every noise he heard, Andrea turned as if expecting to be confronted by a ghost or a demon. He would like to ask his cousin to start the car and leave, and would give everything he had not to be there. But every time he opened his mouth, he was out of breath. He bit his lips and turned away. Try to calm down, you're just paranoid. Ghosts don't exist. And why would the guy who offered him a deal kill us? It doesn't make sense. With each passing second, Andrea regretted getting involved in the business. He lowered his gaze to check the time for the umpteenth time and then looked back to the street, hoping the man would not show up. Are you sure this is the right place and the time? Yes, it's the third time you've asked me, Tony said, but even his voice was no longer as steady as it was before at Rose's place. He must be stuck in traffic. His motivation seemed implausible to Andrea, and Antonio's voice didn't reassure him. This delay does not convince me. His cousin snorted. Why don't you relax here? He handed him the joint he had just lit before. All of a sudden, as if out of nowhere, a car stopped behind theirs, keeping its headlights on. Two men got out of it and strolled toward the cousins, but stopped at their hood. From inside the passenger compartment, two cousins could make out their silhouettes. It's about time, Antonio sighed, and with a decisive move got out of the car, leaving the door open. Andrea stayed in the car and saw him talking to the two men. According to their body language, they all seemed to be in good spirits. Thinking about the doubts that had been nagging him until a couple of minutes before, he could not help but smile, shaking his head. In a matter of minutes, his cousin would close the deal. Next Saturday, they would make a lot of money. Maybe we could give up pot dealing and start something serious. He took out his cell phone and sent a couple of messages. A better life was opening up before him.